Hello and welcome to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath, and this is a big one for me because we're talking about one of my favorite things in the whole world, and that's the Universal Monsters. So I love the Universal Monsters. They are the franchises, the characters, the movies that built Halloween as we know it. They also built pretty much the movie horror genre. Just altogether created this thing. Now we could go back to Silence, but the Universal Monsters cast such a large shadow. Literally and figuratively a large shadow. The idea of cemeteries in the moonlight, werewolves, vampires that say, "I want to suck your blood." Like, that's from these movies. These movies created so much of what we love. And then they were beloved in their time, but then in the 50s and in the 60s with the shock theater programming, a whole new generation got to discover them through their television screens, and it has just continued, domino effect, all the way up to today. If you've never seen these movies, if you're wondering what the gateway is for classic horror, the monsters are your gateway. Start with Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. These are the movies, the Wolfman. You got to start with the classics because these built everything that followed after. And you see the signs of these things in everything from Friday the 13th to Chucky. It just continues to build on what these movies establish. So I love these characters. I love these movies. I've dedicated an entire episode of my Icons of Horror series to the Universal Monsters. 1 year ago, I sat down with my friend JB and we talked about the first 4K box set. And now here we are 1 year later, and I am so happy to be giving you my review for the next volume. This is Universal Classic Monsters, Icons of Horror Collection, essentially Volume 2, though I don't think it says Volume 2 anywhere on here. But we're looking at The Mummy, The Bride of Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, which is the 40s version, and Creature from the Black Lagoon. You see my packaging got dinged in the mail. It came in a bubble mailer. I ordered directly from Groove, which is Universal's direct-to-customer storefront, and it got dinged. So I don't love that, but I can't hide it because it's right here in front of you. These movies are amazing. I've already pretty much gushed about them, so I'm not going to review the films here. Really, you got to watch them. So many of us love them. So how do they look? I know that's the question, right? Is how do these look on 4K? They look fantastic, but here's the catch. The Blu-rays already looked fantastic, and I'm going to take a guess here. This is not something I've confirmed. This is a speculation. Do your own independent research. I have not done research on this. This is my theory. I think that the 4K masters for these movies that's what's been on Blu-ray. The Legacy collections that looked so good. Huge step up from the previous editions. I think those were the remasters, but on Blu-ray. And now we're getting those remasters in their native 4K. And for, I don't like to do tech talk here at Cereal at Midnight because I like to focus on the fun. Cereal at Midnight, it's that feeling of staying up late, eating cereal, watching monster movies, watching cartoons, whatever. It's a tone that I deliberately try to achieve. So we're not going to get too bogged down in the tech specs of this, but I do want to say that when it comes to a 4K transfer on a Blu-ray, you have to compress that down. You have to take this big file and then put it on this much smaller format Blu-ray. So there's obviously going to be a loss of quality. I think that's the difference here, because when you watch the 4Ks, it looks like the same transfer, just better. And the improvement comes down to a few things. It's really a better contrast. The darks, the blacks are blacker. Now the whole transfers aren't darker. Like recently we talked about, what was it? It was transfers. It's just darker altogether. They've really taken the life out of the transfer, made it gray and it's dark. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just a sharper contrast. So blacks are blacker. And, lights have a little bit more punch. It's just deeper. For lack of a better term, it's just deeper now. And the fine grain is so much clearer and more active, and you can really see the life of the film. And it's remarkable because these prints these negatives, these transfers are really, really clean. And that's so rare for movies that are 1931, 1932, 1934. That's so rare for these movies, for anything that age. So there's been a lot of love and a lot of care put into these. And then just the general filmic quality is just better. But it's not like a, blow you away kind of a thing if you're coming from the Blu-rays. Now, if you're coming from DVD, just go ahead and get ready, because the difference is huge. And I have had these movies on DVD, and the difference between, you know, these new remasters is it is night and day. But if you're coming for the Blu-rays expecting this massive improvement, I don't think it's not really there. I'm going to say it's a 25 to 30% improvement, but that's a welcome improvement. And if you don't own these movies at all, and you do want to own them, there's really no question. But one of the things that Universal does that I really love is they include all the special features that are on the Blu-ray on the 4K. Now, if these were like 3-hour movies, I might be a little bit concerned about compression, because that's the whole like with the Blu-ray taking that 4K transfer, like compression, you don't want compression. But because these movies are an hour to an hour, I think Creature from the Black Lagoon might be the longest at an hour and 19 minutes, I think. Because they're so short, we know that there's so much room to breathe on these discs. So you're not swapping discs out. You've got everything. I mean, the special features for these, this is what I'm saying. If you are not overly familiar with these movies, these box sets, you kind of have to have them, because they are indispensable. The level of scholarship, the multiple commentaries, the documentaries, the horror tradition of the Mummy, the life and art of Jack Pierce. That's the iconic, the man behind the makeup, Frankenstein's makeup, the Mummy's makeup. I mean, celebrating Jack Pierce. This stuff it's horror legend is what it is, and you want that. So these special features, you know, my friend JB was talking for last year when we did the review for the first volume, like he got sucked into the special features all over again. He was like, I just was checking for quality, and I just started watching the documentaries again, because they really bring you in. And there's stuff about, you know, the Carl Laemmle era of Universal, and so much historical context. I mean, it's very well done, very, very well done. On the note of this is where I noticed the improvement on Bride of Frankenstein. Because like in the first one, it's the same thing with the first volume. It's like, it's better, but like, how much better is it? You get your magnifying glass out, and you're like, is it? But so in Bride of Frankenstein, the beginning of the movie, we're like, the camera's zooming up to the castle that Mary Shelley is in, and it's also Lanchester, and she's going to tell us about, you know, the modern Prometheus and all this stuff. And it's a dark and stormy night. And I've always known it was a dark and stormy night, but there's like, you know, wind and like a foggy thing that I've always seen. On the 4Ks, I'm like, oh, that's raindrops. You can see the individual streams of rain coming down. And I've never really noticed that before. That like the individual drops of rain, like you can see the individual drops of rain. It's magnificent. So it is an improvement. Creature from the Black Lagoon is another example here. I'll continue to go through this. By the way, this is the Phantom of the Opera, the 1943 version. I think a lot of us we love the Lon Chaney Sr. Phantom of the Opera with the iconic reveal, right? But Universal always runs with this 40s version. It's color. It's kind of a different thing. It's not that I don't want it here, because I'm glad it is here, but you kind of, you make, what am I trying to say? Like, it's just different. All these others are classic black and white. There's so much German expressionism in them. And Phantom of the Opera is a very different thing. But I'm glad that it looks great in 4K. I'll tell you this, the colors, because it is in color, on the 4K, there's so much, that HDR, because, you know, HDR in black and white, I think that's where the contrast I'm talking about comes in. But when you bring in the color, you're like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. It's wild. There's so many colors. There's reds that are fantastic. It's just it does add a layer. But then Creature from the Black Lagoon, you know, you've got the 3D version and the 2D version on the Blu-ray, and then the 4K is just the 2D version. But that's a movie that's always had a lot of really blurry parts to it because of the way that it was shot, because of that 3D technology. By the way, check out my review with the 3D Film Archive talking about 3D movies. It's a whole, you know, the lining up different pieces of film that, you know, lay over each other simultaneously. Like, it's a whole thing. So it's never been really sharp for a lot of it. But the 4K, again, that increased level of contrast and grain never looks so good. These movies have never looked so good. And that's really the end for... That's kind of the last word on these, is they've never looked so good. And so if you are on the fence about, well, do I buy them or not? This is... I dare say this is probably the best these movies are ever going to look. I don't think 8K is coming. People continue to ask me, do you think 4K is probably it? Yes, I think 4K is probably it for consumer format. You might have an 8K TV where you're watching a football game. For filmed entertainment, I think 4K is the end of the line. And this is if you love these movies like I do, and I know a lot of you guys do, this is it's easy to recommend. And like I say, if you don't have them at all, you're getting the Blu-rays and the 4Ks here. So it's a smart purchase. And they're on Groove right now. I think they're $54, $54.99 maybe. And that was free shipping too, I believe. So we're blessed. That's what it comes down to, is that we're really blessed with Universal Monsters. The care that's been taken with these. I wish that other studios put as much love and care into their catalog as Universal has with these movies, and I'm so grateful that we have these 8 movies. It makes me wonder, salivate like the Wolfman. It makes me wonder, what's the possibility for the future? Do we live in a world where I'm going to get Dracula's Daughter on 4K, or what are some Son of Frankenstein, or some of those Invisible Man sequels? Like, are those ever? Is it possible? I would not have dared to dream that a few years ago, but now knowing these are here, and seeing the love behind them, it makes me wonder, and I hope. So, guys, we support things with our dollars. That's what I always say. Every dollar that you spend, every dollar that you don't spend is a vote to these companies as to what their next step is going to be. I'm very happy with these 4K box sets, and I am going to be watching these movies all throughout the Halloween season and beyond. Let me know what you think about these movies and these transfers, these 4Ks. I would love to continue the conversation about the movies. I want to be careful here at Cereal at Midnight that we never spend more time talking about the delivery method than we spend talking about the movies themselves, because that's what's alive. The movies are alive, and movies are magic. Let's talk about it. Guys, thank you so much. Take care. Until next time, I will catch you later.